It seems that every day and every year, food banks are becoming indispensable for so many families. What was once a temporary way to provide food in times of need has become important even for families who have jobs but are low income. BCN's Heidi Echavarria did some research into food insecurity and chatted with the Executive Director of the Interfaith Food Bank here in Lethbridge, Danielle McIntyre, to discuss how vital food banks are in today's society.
We have seen a huge increase in food insecurity in Canada. We actually are seeing 1 in 4 families are struggling to put enough food on the table, and that means that sometimes they are giving up, either the quantity or the quality of food that they're providing for their families. Here in Alberta, we've seen a 92% increase in food insecurity or people accessing food banks since 2019. And that is largely because of the COVID recovery. It hasn't been as great as we thought it would be. And then on top of that, we were faced with a lot of inflation, rising grocery costs, and this unprecedented demand is just kind of a double-edged sword for us, where it is more mouths to feed and less resources to make sure that support is there for them. So pre-pandemic, we were doing about 600 to 700 households a month. Now we're consistently doing closer to 1,000 households per month. We used to talk about 1,300 to 1,500 individuals monthly were being served out of our food bank here in Lethbridge, but now we're doing closer to 2,500.
Food security is when all people at all times have the access to get nutritious food that meets their daily needs. The main reasons that affect food security are climate change, wars, economy, and poverty factors. According to Statistics Canada, from 2015 till 2020, the poverty rate declined in all provinces. In Alberta, for example, the poverty fell 3.3 percentage points from 11.4 to 8.1%. However, the poverty is still here. For that, many food banks and other charities institutions fight together to ensure that low-income families have food on the table, especially during the Christmas season. The executive director at the Interfaith Food Bank, Danielle McIntyre, talks about the important work that the organization does in this regard.
Here in Lethbridge, our food banks are able to help with meeting the immediate need. So we get food into the hands of the people who need it the most. What we do here at Interfaith Food Bank is take that one step further and try to address the underlying issues that are placing people in need of the food bank. And what we're finding is that in many cases, it's not that people are making poor choices, it's that there's not enough money to budget. And so we're seeing a lot of people being impacted by very high housing costs, which eats up the majority of their budget. And unfortunately for many people, that food budget is the one place that they can cut. And so we will try to connect people with other resources in the community to address those underlying issues. We also have empowerment programs such as our garden and kitchen programs that teach people how to cook a healthy meal on a limited budget. But ultimately, food insecurity is not going to be addressed until we actually have some policy decisions that are going to improve the circumstances at a systemic level. We need more affordable housing. We need to have fair wages for people who are trying to earn enough to put food on the table. We have a client advocacy and resource room here on site where we work with our families to find out what is the reason why they can't buy their groceries themselves. And often it has to do with employment, or they're paying too much for their housing, or perhaps they need some mental health supports or some education. And so what we do is we meet with that family, find out what they identify as their needs, and then we connect them with other community resources to get them into the hands of the people who have the skills, the experience, and the mandate to deal with those underlying issues. The unfortunate circumstance is right now, people are not here because they don't have skills. They're here because they don't have money to buy their own food. And so that really is going to require a lot of investment on behalf of all levels of government. We are seeing a lot of people we shouldn't see. We are seeing dual income households, 2 working people still not making enough to put food on the table. We're seeing people who thought they would be able to retire now not be able to afford their groceries because the fixed incomes are not enough. It is a circumstance where we can't put a face on who is a food bank user anymore. It could be anyone in your community. That includes your friends, your neighbors, schoolmates, people on your team, even your coworkers.
According to Food Banks Canada, visits to these charity places in March 2024 were more than 2 million, the highest number in history. This year's food bank usage represents a 90% increase compared to March 2019. Another important point that the institution mentioned is that 1/3 of food bank clients are children under the age of 18. On the other hand, 18% of food bank clients report employment as their main source of income, compared to 12% in 2019. As we see, now the visit to food banks is not necessarily about poverty, but the high cost of living force many families to use the food banks to put food on the table. For Bridge City News, I'm Heidi Echavarria.